This is our lesson 4 on computer systems called CPU. And as you're aware, we are following the OCR J277 specification computer science. So, what is a CPU? Always remember a CPU is a small computer component which is responsible for processing of data and instructions. It is the brain of the computer. It controls everything. The CPU is the part of the computer that processes data by executing programs and manages the rest of the hardware. You can think of a CPU as a brain. So, for example, you might remember things as a human being, that's your main memory. If, for example, your body moves, that is your cache memory. And also, if you're thinking about things, remembering things, or thinking about things, that is your processor. So, what is the purpose of the CPU? The purpose of a CPU is to fetch, decode, execute instructions. And if you had watched my previous video, you would understand what do we mean by fetch, decode, execute instructions. Its purpose is to search, sort, calculate, and make decisions. So, what are the components of CPU? The CPU is made of ALU, control unit, cache, registers. Now, we will talk about these later on, but this is what you need to understand. What are the components of CPU? So, what is ALU? ALU is the calculator of the CPU. It handles mathematical, logical operation that are required as part of an instruction. So, what does ALU do? It does addition, subtraction, division, multiplication. It also does our logical instructions, for example, and, or, not, greater than, less than. Next, we have to look at the control unit, which is the main boss, coordinates how uh, basically control unit runs the whole show. It coordinates how data moves around the CPU by sending signals to control the flow of the data, decodes the instructions fetched from memory. What is the main job? As already mentioned, the main job of the control unit is to make sure that execution of instruction is in the correct sequence, decodes every instruction that the processor will execute, sends and receives control signals to and from other components, checks that signals have been delivered successfully, makes sure that data goes to the correct place at the correct time. Next is cache. Cache is very small, very fast memory located in the CPU, which is used to provide quick access to frequently used instructions and data. The more cache there is, the more data can be stored. It speeds up the performance of the CPU. It prevents the CPU from having to repeatedly fetch frequently used instructions from RAM. Registers, they, as we already know and we have talked about them in our previous video, registers are extremely small, fast memory located in the CPU. Each register does its own specific job and it has its own purpose. It holds data such as number or letter, or they hold an address. An address points to the memory location which holds data. We also need a RAM. RAM has got loads of memory location. Cache, clock is the CPU contains an internal clock. The clock signal is used to synchronize the operation of the processor components. The system clock, also referred to as the clock, generally regulates clock pulses such as zeros and ones. And later on, we will talk about cache in detail. Um, I've got a separate video on it. What characters does the clock need to have? It has to be punctual, it has to be reliable, it should have a good rhythm, it manages cycles per second. So you can pause the video and take some notes. 1 hertz is 1 clock cycle per second. 1 million hertz is megahertz. 1000 megahertz is gigahertz. So let's look at an exam question. Kelly wants to buy a new computer, but she does not understand what the different parts of a computer do. Kelly has heard of CPU but does not know what it is. The following sentences describe the purpose of a CPU. To complete the sentences by filling in the missing words. CPU stands for, so you just write that down, Central Processing Unit. It's part of the computer that fetches and executes the instructions that are stored in main memory. The CPU contains an arithmetic logic unit and the control unit.